the cloud. Arts. Okay, we are recording. Okay, welcome to Hang test review, Hang-2 test review. For the audience's benefit, I'm Takeo. I'm a basic instructor who works primarily out of the Northern California area. I'm a non-commercial instructor, so I teach who I want when I want. In addition, I've been an observer for the last 5 or 6 years, looking primarily after Hang-2s and mostly my wife's classmates. My wife was also a hang glider pilot. I have a very informal presentation style. So if I'm doing or I'm going over a part of the material and you have questions, feel free to stop me in the middle and we could talk about it. Or if I use a term or present the information in a way that makes it difficult for you to understand, please let me know. We'll go over it, chip away at it one bit at a time. Okay. Also, I'll ask everybody for feedback on how the review went and ideas on how we can make it better. Okay. All right, let's get started. Okay, is everybody, hang on. Slideshow, I need to start it. All right, I'm having some PowerPoint issues, so give me a quick second. All right, that's fine. All right, that'll be fine. All right, our hang test review. So we're going to go over a few things. First thing we're going to go over is the wing and aerodynamics, right? Unless you have a flying background, most people don't have any idea how any of this works. Probably some of you have been flying and don't understand how this works, but it is important for your actual flying career, and the material is on the test. So the wing, the definition of aerodynamic chord. Sometimes you'll hear that term bandied about in your flying career. And chord is the imaginary line between the leading and the trailing edge. Okay, that's the simple answer. Okay. Now, why is that important? What's important because it helps you define something called the angle of attack. So who's heard that term? Anybody heard that term before? Okay, yes. Cool. Angle of attack. So angle of attack is what? Does anybody know what the angle of attack is without actually looking at the slide?
Isn't it the angle of your wings in relation to, I guess, the horizon, or
like the nose? Yeah, the nose.
Nope.
No.
So here's the thing. What you're talking about, Austin, is what's called pitch attitude. Attitude is the angle of the wing to the horizon. Okay. Now.
Okay.
How many of you seen any aircraft performing aerobatics? Now, is it possible for a wing to generate lift when it's upside down?
Depends on the wing, I think.
It actually depends on the angle of attack. So the angle of attack, as defined, it's the difference between the chord line and the direction of the relative wind. Okay, so the chord line again is the imaginary line between the leading edge and the trailing edge of the wing, right? But the relative wind is the direction the air is coming at that wing. Okay, so that angle is what we call the angle of attack. Okay, now to answer your question, can a wing generate lift when it's upside down? Certainly. The wing actually doesn't care whether it's upside down or right side up. Now you care because you want the direction of lift to point away from the ground, right? But I could be upside down and the wing will be generating lift. It'll be generating lift this way. Make sense? I'll be at a positive angle of attack. Okay.
So it's the angle between, you said the chord line, is that what it's called?
Right, the chord line and the relative wind.
So it's the chord line and basically the velocity of the glider, not necessarily
the direction the wind is coming at the wing. Okay. So
relative wind, right?
Right. So I'll give you a good example. If you're flying a line on a glider like this, right? if you ever look at a glider that's flying like in ridge lift, as it passes you and it's on a ridge, right? You'll see that the wing is pointed up a little bit, right? But what happens is the relative wind, because it's in ridge lift, is coming from below, so that if the angle of attack is actually higher than you think it is when it's passing along the ridge. Makes sense, right? So
Yeah.
if I take a glider 1,000 feet in the air and I drop it, what it'll do is it'll always be descending, right? So the relative wind isn't from directly ahead, it's actually from below, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the all the angle of attack is the difference between where the wind is coming at the wing and the chord line. So if you stick your hand out the window, the wind is coming directly in the travel of the car, and if I tilt my hand up, then I have a positive angle of attack. If I tilt my hand down, I have a negative angle of attack. That's all angle of attack is it's the difference between the angle of the wing to the wind that's coming at it.
Gotcha.
Austin, you look a little confused.
No, I got it.
Okay, cool.
I think I always thought, I don't know, thought that as with wing and the horizon is what
Okay,
I always got
so
confused. That's
here's-
why it's the wind. It's the
Right.
wind. Yeah.
Well, you're right to
really
be confused because a lot of people conflate the two. They make the two the same, but they're not the same. Right.
Yeah.
It's always the wind how that wind meets the angle of the wing, or what
Right.
angle that it meets that wing. Okay. Now, what people will tell you is angle of attack, but what they really mean is pitch attitude. Right. So your attitude to the horizon. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're on a hill, you want to be a little lower, right? If you're on
Yeah.
flat ground, you want to be a little higher. That's pitch attitude. Okay, wing loading. So wing loading is the total weight carried by the aircraft divided by the wing area, right? So, Austin, what size wing do you fly? Do you know? Do you have your own?
I don't. We use the club gliders.
Okay.
I wanna
Anybody else?
say-
Does anybody know what size glider they typically fly?
I think I'm on an Alpha 235.
A 235. Cool. So
Mine's Alpha 180, so same
180
Alpha.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So, what was your name again?
I'm Mark.
Mark. Got it.
Mark. Okay.
Mark. So Mark, how much would the glider and all your equipment typically weigh? A guess is fine.
Yeah, I don't know what the glider weighs. I don't know what the harness weighs. I'm 178. So
So I can tell you
I'm
it's about 220 altogether, maybe
Okay.
230 altogether. So your
Okay.
wing loading is 230 divided by 235. So you have basically
Okay.
like a 1-to-1.
basically one. Yeah.
1 pound per square foot. Nano's probably less, right? So
Wait, what was the equation again?
it's the wing. It's the weight divided by the wing area.
Okay. Weight of the pilot.
Weight of everything that the glider
Oh,
is carrying, including
everything.
itself.
Okay. Okay.
Now, this isn't that important for the test, but it's important for you to know. Okay.
Mhm.
As we get a little farther, I'm going to teach pretty much exactly to the test. I'm only worried about you guys passing the test, but this part is important for everybody to know. This is actually straight out of the Hang-3 test. Okay. All right. So wing loading is wing weight divided by the wing area. Okay. Now, if you have a higher wing loading, generally what happens to your performance, like your glide performance? It gets worse. Lighter wing loading gets better. Now, there's certain situations by having a higher wing loading is more desirable over a lower wing loading, and vice versa. So in strong conditions, you want a higher wing loading. Light conditions, you want a lighter wing loading. That's why on a typical day, my wife is typically 1,000 feet above me, right? Because her wing loading is a little more than
But if you want it to be speedy, you want it higher, right?
high. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what is the definition of a stall without looking at the actual slide?
Definition of stall.
Yeah. What do I mean by a stall? Has anybody heard that term before?
Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody
No.
executed a stall before?
Yes.
Not yet.
So any idea what that means?
No lift.
Right. A loss of lift. Okay. So how does a stall occur? Does it have to do with speed?
Yes. Oh no.
Now,
Yeah,
here's the
lack of
thing.
airspeed.
you're right to be confused, because most people will say you're reaching your stall speed, but that's not actually true. Stall
Drag.
is whenever you exceed the critical angle of attack. So angle of
Okay.
attack is
okay.
what? It's the angle that the wing meets the wind, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Now there's a certain point by which the wing angle is so high that the
Mhm.
air breaks off the top of the wing. And that's what we call a stall. So knowing that, can a stall occur when you're going fast?
Yes,
Yes.
if your ground
Yeah.
speed is fast.
Nope, has nothing to do with ground speed.
When the
Airspeed.
angle of attack is too
Right. So when you exceed the
exceed
critical angle of
whatever.
attack
Yeah.
is when you stall.
Because you
Okay.
can be generating no lift, but still moving upwards, right?
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen a jet fighter pull a maneuver called a Cobra maneuver?
I've heard
You
of
saw
it.
Top
but-
Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
Not
Remember
yet.
that scene where he pops flares and pulls a stick and the airplane goes like this, and he goes right
Mhm.
over the top of Rooster's canopy? That's what's called a post-stall maneuver. So it doesn't matter how fast or slow you're going.
Mhm.
Stall equals you've exceeded the critical angle of attack.
Critical angle of attack.
Right.
What is critical angle of attack?
So every airfoil, every wing has an angle by which the air no longer will go smoothly over the top. So if you look at the picture here, you'll see that on the top picture, the air is still going over the top of the wing smoothly. Right.
I don't think.
Are you showing
uh,
pictures on the slide? I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, the slide is still on the first slide.
Okay, hang on one second here. Are you seeing me mess around with the slide or no?
Yeah.
You are. Okay. So I'm actually, okay, well, let me reshare it. I'm gonna share just the screen. Okay, you're seeing my desktop, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, if I'm talking and nothing's happening, yeah, definitely stop me. All right. Are you able to see what I'm seeing, what my desktop is showing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got a picture of the wing.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So you can see this first picture where the air is smoothly going over the top, right?
Hmm.
You got a little bit of turbulence on the back. But how about on the second one where you see basically all the air is broken up behind the wing plate? Okay, so you can actually feel this in the car. You stick your hand outside the window, and you'll feel that the air is smooth up to a certain point, and then you'll get all this like turbulence back behind your hand. That means your wing is stalled. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Now, what relationship does it have with speed? Well, if you're flying along at level flight, the slower you fly, right, the higher angle of attack you are to maintain a certain descent rate. Okay. Now, you slow down, and to maintain that same descent rate, you're increasing the angle of attack. At some point, you're going to cross the critical angle of attack, and the wing will stall.
Okay.
When you're flying fast, you're at a very shallow angle of attack. Okay. So that's the relationship of angle of attack equals speed, because the wing functions by how much air mass is flowing over the wing, right? So
Mhm.
when you fly fast, you're flying through more air mass, so it's taking that larger air mass and moving it, right?
Mhm.
That's Newton's third law. So you move air this way, you go this way. Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what happens is when you're flying slowly, you're moving through less air mass. You have to move it more to get the same amount of lift. Make sense? So you increase the angle of attack. Now you get to a certain point, the air doesn't want to flow anymore. So you stall.
Gotcha.
Stall is when you exceed the critical angle of attack.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's get into flying skills. All right, when you are flying higher than you're used to, you will have a tendency to fly too fast, right? Mark, when you first got up in the air, were you ever caught pulling in too much?
Yes.
Okay, no, same thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you got up high and you had a tendency to pull in too much.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, cool. So when you're flying fast, what happens to the control inputs?
It's more responsive.
Yes, it gets more twitchy, more responsive, right? Okay. Now, when you're flying a single surface glider and you're flying fast, what happens to the pitch pressure? Bar
What do you
pressure?
mean? Oh,
Do you get more bar pressure when you're flying fast?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
The glider
resistance is
resists you.
higher.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it
Yes.
resists you flying higher or faster, right? So it results in more pitch pressure. Well, you're flying fast, the pitch pressure is higher, and the glider is more sensitive to inputs to
Mhm.
yaw and roll. Have you ever been in a situation you're pulling so much that the glider starts to do this wobbly thing?
No.
You haven't? Okay. You will eventually. So have you ever seen it in somebody else where they're pulling it like this and the glider starts to do the slow wobble? You have, Nano, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you know what that's called?
I know it's the pilot induced oscillation.
Perfect. That's right. PIO. Okay. How do you beat PIO?
Good trim.
Yeah, slow down. Exactly. Got that? So
Yay!
higher speed, more pitch pressure, higher sensitivity, vulnerable to PIO. Solution to PIO is slow down. Okay. I'm in a turn. I have this turn that creates a certain circle in the sky. If I want to tighten the turn, what do I need to do?
Tighten the turn.
Yeah, I want to
I
make that
mean,
circle
you-
smaller.
Bank a
if-
lot and
Mhm.
with slower speed,
Does everybody agree? So increasing bank angle, right?
Bank a lot, but yeah, but then push up, right?
Yeah. So we'll get into that in a second. Okay, cool. So bank angle is what really determines the combination of bank angle and pitch. The correct pitch attitude or the pitch angle is what gives you your turn circle. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Now, the problem is that when you're in a steep bank angle, right? If you're not used to it and you pull in, what happens to your flight path?
Go down.
Yeah, right. So you have what's called a slipping turn. So
Mhm.
you can have a startling loss of altitude. Okay. Now, you just had that experience, Nano, where you released and you lost a lot of altitude on that first turn, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
because you kept that same bar pressure in the bank, and so
Right.
the glider went, "Whoop, okay, you want to slip," so you slipped. Okay?
Yeah.
That's why you lost so much altitude. All right, cool. All right. Okay, so balancing balancing roll or bank angle and pitch is what gives you a smooth turn. Okay, that's what we call what kind of turn? What kind of turn? If it's not a slipping turn,
Coordinated turn.
Yes, exactly.
Yay!
Okay. The smooth application of pitch, roll, and yaw in turns is how you can tell a good pilot, right? The bad ones are slipping all the time. Now, it's different if you're intentionally slipping, but you guys aren't there yet. Okay, the more efficiently you turn, the longer you can stay up,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Balancing pitch and turns can keep you turning at a good rate without climbing or diving, right? Okay, what do you know about entering the turn? Do you typically enter the turn exactly at trim? What should you do before you start the turn?
Pull in.
Yeah, exactly. Add energy, right? You adding energy, the glider wants to lift, you turn. Some of the lift that's used to keep you in the air is used to pull you into the turn. So you actually want to enter the turn with a little bit more energy. Now, if you enter it precisely at trim, right, and you enter that bank, what's probably going to happen as you start to turn? You're probably going to lose a lot of altitude because the glider's going to want to pitch down.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other one, the worst case scenario is if you, let's say you're in that turn, you start pushing out and you're right at trim, you can risk a stall spin accident right there.
Mhm.
All right. So let's say, for instance, you want to establish a certain bank angle, right? Do you hit that bank angle and then stop shifting your weight, or do you lead a little bit? You start moving your body towards the center as you reach your bank angle, right? So that you hit the angle that you want. If you leave that input in the whole time, what will happen is you'll overshoot it, right? You've probably done that in training, right? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So you want to lead your desired bank angle with your weight shift. Coordinated turns balance coordinated turns balance angle of attack with bank angle. Slipping
Mhm.
turns use a lower angle of attack than a coordinated turn using the same bank angle. Okay, that's the easy way to remember a slipping turn versus a coordinated turn.
Is the reason that if you pull in when you're in a bank turn, that you go down is because it's because when you're in a bank, the lift is not only going up, right?
Yes, it's
It's
pointed to the
going
side too.
up and
Yeah.
causing you to turn. So when you pull in, you're going. Okay.
There's a
It-
couple of
isn't
You're
it-
components.
going like that. 'cause
Isn't
you're-
it because gravity is pulling you from
Right.
the lower
Yeah.
wing is pulled by the gravity? So naturally, it just yeah.
So what happens is in a turn, you want to use the concept of a lift vector. Hang on one second. Get my visual aid. So you have the concept of a lift vector. So what you want to do is you want to imagine that there's a line coming straight out of the top of your hang glider. Okay. Now, when I'm flying straight and level, my wings are generating lift this direction. Okay. Now, when I turn, I'm banking it and I'm stealing part of the lift that would keep you in the air to
to
turn.
turn.
right?
Okay.
Now, coordinated turn, in order to keep enough lift so I maintain a good flight path through the air, what do I need to do with this wing and generate more lift?
Decrease.
Right, yeah, you need to increase your angle of attack, right?
Mhm.
Now, if I slip, what happens is if I pull in, right? Now, all of a sudden I'm generating less lift up, right? So the glider will speed up. It's almost like pointing the nose at the ground, right? Now, also it gets complicated with the aerodynamics, but it's like you can get into like gliders because they don't have tail surfaces. They slip better than most airplanes do. Okay, so in the case of an airplane, what I would do to slip is I would stomp on the rudder and move the stick the other way, right? And I would slip to the sky like this, but I wouldn't accelerate very fast because I have a lot of side surface area. Hang gliders don't have that side surface area. They don't have the rudder and they don't have the fuselage, right? So if I turn that sideways to the wind in an airplane, like I'll come down fast, but I won't speed up very much. But in a hang glider, you'll come down fast and speed up. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. If you find yourself in a slipping turn, what can you do to help coordinate that turn? Remember, you're pulling in, right? You're in a bank and you're pulling in.
Yeah. So
Let out.
let out. Yeah.
The bar out. What's another way you could actually help coordinate the turn a little bit?
Level your wing.
Right, less bank, exactly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right, so you're in a turn, you keep pushing out till the glider exceeds its critical angle of attack. First, the glider will mush, right? So it'll fly. Has anybody ever mushed their glider and find out what happens? You ever flown too slowly or you've been told you've been flying too slowly?
Yeah.
What happens?
You don't have very good control over the glider.
Okay, good.
Just
Anything
kinda,
else? Does the ground come up at you faster?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's called mushing flight. So you're basically right on the edge of stall, right? Cool. Can you stall in that environment? So you're in a turn, you're actively pushing out.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. You can stall, right? Stall equals exceeding
No
the
lift.
critical angle of attack,
Yes.
right? Right. Yeah, which results in a loss of lift. Okay, good.
Mhm.
Now, if I keep pushing out even after the glider stalled and I'm in a bank, what can happen after that? You can find yourself in a spin,
Yeah.
right?
Wait,
So
say it again.
you can find yourself in a spin
What? No. When you do what?
when you are in a bank and you keep
Okay.
pushing out and you
Pushing
keep
out, okay.
and you maintain that push out even after the glider stalled.
Okay.
Easy way to think of a spin is it's an uncoordinated stall. right? So like
Okay.
if I spin the plane that I'm flying, I pull the stick all the way back and I kick the rudder and the airplane spins like this, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now that's really hard to do in a hang glider, but it can be done in certain hang gliders.
Wait,
gliders
but
you guys-
so your Masayo-san, your wife, there is such thing as spin like landing, right? Purposely.
Oh yeah, that's a spiral dive.
Spiral.
Yeah.
But
A
that's
spin
always
is-
a con-
Yes,
that's
a spin is
okay.
quite violent. You go like this, and you'll literally be turning around almost your entire. It'll literally look like
Ooh.
this.
Okay,
It's
I've
like
seen
a-
that in a video.
It's like a sycamore seed. When you throw the sycamore seed out, that's sycamore speed is in a spin.
Gotcha. Okay.
Makes sense?
Okay.
It makes sense, right? Because there's only one flap. That's part of the only thing
Mhm.
that's flying, right? The other side's not
Mhm.
flying, so it's in a spin.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. How many of you launched in high winds before? Nope.
Not
No.
yet.
Anything over 10
I-
miles an hour? Okay, you have?
Yeah. Yeah, I did at the hang gliding spectacular at the end of the
Oh,
day.
good. Yeah. So at the beach. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
what do you got to do as far as control of the glider? Like say when you're on the ground.
Like when you're preparing to launch, you mean?
Yeah, just
Or-
like just walking around with the glider. What do you got to do?
Just ground handling.
Yeah, you have to be a lot more careful because it's
Bingo. That's what I was looking for. Okay. When you're launching, also same thing, right? You're in high winds. You got to be more careful because like if you don't balance the glider properly, like you're not pointed into the wind, right? You're not pulling in on launch. You can get flipped over. You probably saw people get flipped over, right? Did anybody get turtled at the spectacular? No?
I don't know
Okay,
if
well-
anyone got turtled, but I think a couple people got close.
Okay.
What's
yeah, good.
turtle? What's turtle? I've heard the turtle.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the wind will flip you over, and your hands will be in the air like a turtle
Oh,
lying on his
this
back.
way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Gosh. Okay.
Novice and beginner gliders should be roll stable. That is, if you leave them alone, they should try and roll back to level flight in a turn. Okay, sorry. Higher performance gliders are not good for beginners. They are less stable, less forgiving of bad angle of attack control, less forgiving stall, and they land faster. Generally, higher performance gliders roll slower than beginner and intermediate gliders. Generally, the higher the performance, the less pitch stable they are, and the more roll stable they are, or the more roll resistant they are. Okay, so you'll make an input, and it'll take a while for it to respond. Okay. Different gliders will have different lag times and roll input response. Generally, you should lead rolling out of the turn when you're 2/3 of the way out of a 90-degree turn. Okay. Now, yeah, and like, look, that's a hard number. You're not going to calculate that in flight, right? How are you going to learn when you need to roll out of a turn in real terms?
As soon as you hit the turn reach the turn.
What I was thinking about is it's experience.
Oh, okay.
You just do it. After a while, you figure out, oh, I
True.
rolled out too early or
True.
I rolled out too late. Okay, you all do it, right? But 2/3 is the number that's in the book. Okay. All right. Target fixation will have you flying directly at objects where you don't want to go. To avoid this, you look where you want to go. Okay. How many people have heard of somebody hitting the only tree in a big field? Right? Yeah. So you're approaching something like there's a cow in the middle of the field, which is a thing where we live. And some people keep looking at that cow until they're almost on top of it. Like they have to they might hit the side of it. So if that happens, take your head and point your eyes somewhere else and go. Okay?
Yeah. Our training site is actually a cow pasture.
Oh
So-
no! So you land
There's a
on,
lot of cows.
Yeah.
You land on poops, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's hang gliding. Are you kidding me?
I've
Ugh.
seen a couple people belly slide through one. It's not
Ah.
pretty.
Okay. I've had one where I landed on it on my feet and slid like I was on a set of water
Ooh.
skis all the way across the field. But yeah, so instead of staring at the target, go, oh crap. If you ever say to yourself, oh crap, I'm gonna hit that thing, take your eyes and force yourself to look somewhere else.
Right.
All right, gliders are powered by gravity, which pulls them down. It's the aerodynamics allows them to convert the downward motion to forward motion. Because of this, it is harder to launch on a steep or a shallow slope.
Shallow.
Shallow.
Shallow, yeah.
Why?
Because you have less downward motion.
Right. So you have
Or
less
it's
energy.
less quick.
Right. So you have to keep flying the glider as you're running. Right.
Mhm,
That's why it's a separate
Mhm.
skill called a flat slope launch. Okay.
mhm.
But if you master flat slope launch, how do your steep launches go?
Good.
Better. Yeah, exactly. All right. Wind's power is the square of the velocity. So therefore, wind that's twice as strong carries 4 times as much energy.
Mhm, mhm.
When you're flying into headwinds, what do headwinds do to your glide path?
Shorten
make
it.
Shorten it. Exactly.
Oh,
Right? You're
no, I
paddling up
didn't
a
think that.
river. Okay. All right. Good. How about tailwinds?
Lengthen it.
lengthen, yeah,
elongate.
the opposite.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Give me 1 second.
a glider path.
Oh, my car alarm is going off. Okay, good. When it's calm, best glide gives you best distance over the ground. Okay. In calm air, min sync gives you the slowest descent rate, right? So it's like it is min sync generally faster or slower than trim?
Lower.
Yeah, it depends, but it's usually slower than trim. Right. Now, here's the thing. When you're playing with min sync, what are you risking?
Stall.
Stall.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Okay, when the AOA of a wing is increased too far, it stalls. Good. If your glider doesn't want to turn when you make an input, you are probably flying
Too slow.
Too slow.
slow. That's right. Okay, you're flying a single surface glider and you're flying faster than trim. I need to change the
Mhm.
wording there. Towards your target on an overshoot course. Pull in and dive the glider and level off and land. Boy, that's really badly worded. I need to change that. So you're a little high. You're flying a single surface glider. Pull in a little bit. Dive so that you land ahead of your target. Right. Okay. Now, are ground speed and airspeed the same thing?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. Right. So don't confuse the ground speed with airspeed on a downwind. Okay. So if you're flying downwind and the wind is real strong and the ground's going by real fast, should you try and slow down?
No, you should speed up because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, keep that bar pressure. Keep that speed up, the air speed up. Okay. So you listen what the glider's telling you. You don't worry about what's on the ground.
Why on the last slide it said that in headwind, you go a shorter distance, but wouldn't
Yes.
that make you go a farther distance because you have more airspeed?
Okay. So you have more airspeed, but think of it this way. It's exactly the river analogy. If I paddle real hard against a river, I'm still not going to go as far up river as I would if I stop paddling and I go down river. Right. It's that entire air mass that's moving and you're in it. Even if you're flying faster, you're still not going to go as far as you would downwind.
Okay.
Right. It's a pretty simple math calculation. It's like your airspeed minus the wind equals whatever your ground speed is, right? But when you're going downwind, it's your airspeed plus the wind speed.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, and this is a big deal. If you're flying in a location where the wind is fairly strong, you'll be zipping along the ground pretty good. If you go, oh crap, I'm going real fast, I'll slow you down. I need to slow down. Bad things will happen.
Mm.
All right. So and I know that no, you just executed this. You're in a flare. You start to zoom. What do?
Hold it.
Yeah, just wait.
Oh yeah.
Just wait, and then continue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're near the ground, some of the best ways to increase flight time is to fly min sync. Although that depends. That's the book answer. Okay. When you're close to the ground, what speed should you be flying?
What speed?
Yeah, when you're close to the ground,
I mean, you gotta be
Trim.
speedy,
like better than best glide, right?
better than best glide. Okay, that's how you have to say it. Okay, better than best glide.
How do you find out what weight range your glider is rated for? Look at the manual or look at the placard on the glider.
Okay.
There's another one that says ask your instructor, but I don't I personally don't believe in that, because under no circumstances when it comes to stuff that you can look up yourself should you ask someone else. And that, by the way, that includes me. So if I tell you something, you shouldn't take my word for it. Go to the reg, go to the manual, go to the documentation, read it, and look it up yourself. That was one of my first advices to all of my military recruits. So pull the reg and read it yourself, right? So go to the manual and look and read it yourself. Okay, moving your shoulders one direction while your feet go the other is called cross controlling, right? If you do this, the glider will respond either slowly towards where you want to go, it may do nothing, or it might even go the opposite way, right? So the reason why is pretty simple. It's like if I imagine a center line like this, a line that goes through my body, especially if I'm prone, and my head and shoulders go one way, my legs go the other way, it means that half my weight is on this side of the line, half my weight's on that side of the line, right? If my legs are heavier, I might go the opposite direction. If my head is heavier, I might go this way. But either way, it's slower than if you take your entire body and move it across that line. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Mechanical turbulence is made by the wind hitting objects or terrain. The rotor from the wind hitting trees, hills, trees, and houses is typically found above and downwind of large objects. Okay, so you imagine a mountain peak, right? And I do mean a peak, something sharp. Okay, all the rotor will be back here or above it, right? So it'll be in this zone, right? So if you're flying above a house, right, what you don't want to do is end up too close to the top of the house or behind the house. Make sense? Okay.
Won't there be a like low pressure, like no wind speed behind it too?
Yeah, that's
Or like under it?
that's what we mean by rotor, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So what'll happen is directly over the peak, you have the wind go like this, and there'll be, as you say, a low pressure zone right behind it.
Okay.
Like that's generally a bad place to be. Sometimes you'll later in your career, if you're flying sites where you may land on an uphill, you may deliberately fly into a rotor, or you may have to fly into rotor. In that case, what do you do to prepare for that situation?
Speed up.
Yeah, speed up, exactly. And I do mean like speed up. You speed up a lot. We have a site here called Mission where sometimes you'll be landing behind the empty part of a hill, and you'll be directly in the wind shadow. So you'll go from like 15-mile-an-hour wind, and like the difference of 20 feet, you'll go from 15 to almost nothing, right? So you have to have that airspeed when you go down into it. Otherwise, it will just drop you on the ground.
Rotor.
Yeah. Okay, so what is wind gradient? What do I mean when I say wind gradient?
It's the gradient of the wind from like wind speed is higher the higher you go, and it decreases as you get closer to the ground.
So a difference in wind speed based on altitude?
Yes.
Okay. What causes the slowing of the wind as you get closer to the ground?
Friction.
Friction
with
ground,
what?
Right?
With the ground, exactly, and objects around. Good. All right, part 103. Let's see. We as hang gliders fly without license, without medical exams, and without major qualification because we adhere to the FAR part 103 reg. Now, remember what I just said about reading the reg yourself? Go and pull the FAR part 103 reg and read it yourself. It's only 2 pages. You should be able to look through it. Okay. Under part 103, you cannot fly near the congested area of a city, town, or settlement, or open area assembly of people. Most of the area of the U.S. east of the Mississippi above 1,200 feet AGL is Class E or controlled airspace. Okay. You do not need prior authorization generally to fly in Class E or G airspace. Everything else you do. Okay. And does anybody know what a temporary flight restriction is?
A flight restriction that is temporary.
right? Okay, what does it typically put up for?
An
What's a common-
emergency,
That's one. Like
Weather.
what?
executive privilege. like,
Yeah. So when you're doing VIP movement, what else?
Weather.
Weather.
Mhm.
Generally you don't get a TFR for weather. But let's say, for instance, like Mark brought up the example of an emergency. Why would somebody put up a TFR for an emergency? What kind of emergency would warrant a
Like
TFR?
a helicopter, like medical, what is it called? Helivac?
Like a medical evacuation?
Yeah.
Generally,
maybe.
those are short enough that they don't need a TFR, but you're kind of on that right track.
Like a fire, like
A
pump
fire.
system fire. is what I'm-
Right. So what's around fires?
Smoke.
Smoke.
Plenty of thermals. Thermals.
Oh, I forget. You guys are all East Coasters. So here on the West Coast, wildfires are typically fought with aircraft.
Mm.
Right. So you have low altitude airplanes and helicopters. Actually, we have a really nice video on what it's, how fire aircraft works. I recommend you look at that on our YouTube channel. Okay, good. So TFR, so VIP movements, like also certain things have TFRs around them. So you ever been around Disney World? There's a TFR that sits directly over the top of Disney World. Same thing with the White House, same thing with parts of downtown New York. Anywhere there's important people.
Wait, what is TFR stands for?
Temporary flight restriction.
Okay.
The reason I brought it up is because it applies to all aircraft, not just airplanes. So hang gliders and model airplanes and drones also are subjected to TFRs.
Okay.
Got it? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. The only thing that you're interested in is the very top list for Hang-2. So you need to have logged ground school, of which I will count this. So if you need an endorsement in your logbooks for logged ground school, I'll be happy to add my endorsement for the however long we're going to be doing this. Demonstrate airspeed changes and 90-degree and 180-degree turns, 3 landings within a 100-foot spot. That's Hang-2 requirement. The others are
Mhm.
Hang-3 and 4. It's nice to look over them, but not required for the test. Okay. All right, airspace and sectional charts. I'm going to pull up a web page and we're going to go over airspace and sectional charts. Okay, so this is what's called the sectional chart. Oh, we were talking about TFRs, right? See that red circle? Are you seeing can you guys see the map?
Yeah.
Okay.
Baseball game.
Bingo, that's right. So there's a baseball game going on over there, so they put a TFR right over the top of it, which is really annoying because like when I fly the Bay Tour, that's like the path I like to go. I like to go right directly over the city. So okay, so this is what's called a VFR chart, and let me do San Francisco TAC. Okay, it's a paper map that actually has like all the airports in the area and all the airspace that's required. The only one you guys have to remember is Class Delta. Class Delta is a small airport with a control tower that is denoted with a dashed blue line on the map. Okay,
Dash.
so give me an example of an airport that's a Class Delta airport based on what I just told you. A dashed blue line. And can you read the text on there or no?
Yeah.
Okay, Austin, give me an example of a Class Delta airport. Can you read this line?
Yeah.
Oh, Hillview, Reed Hillview.
Reed Hillview, exactly. So you have this dashed blue line
Oh,
around it.
okay, okay.
Okay.
I thought it would be like on the line.
Yeah. So what happens is, so yeah, that's a good point. The airport's in the middle of the circle.
Okay.
Right. So how about here, Palo Alto? This is my home airport, right? Dash blue line, Class Delta airport. Now, just for trivia's sake, you see this magenta line, right? Okay. What do you suppose this airport is? What class do you think this airport belongs to? If the little airport is Class D, what's the next bigger airport that up from it?
Class C.
Class C airspace. Okay. Now, just for education purposes, you have this dashed blue line, right? So you think of the airport's in the middle and it's a cylinder that extends up from the ground. In that airspace, you need to contact the tower and establish and maintain two-way communications with that tower, right? Now, how high is this cylinder based on the information that you see here? Take a guess.
20,000 feet.
It's 2,000 feet.
Oh, 2,000 feet.
Okay, good. All right. Now, this is a Class C airport. San Jose International is a Class C airport, right? What does this number mean?
4,000.
The
feet.
40?
4,000.
4,000. Okay, good.
Okay.
What does SFC mean? Surface. So it goes from 4,000 feet all the way to the ground. So inside this area, if I want to fly, I need permission from the tower. Okay. How about here?
4,000 feet to 2,500 feet.
Bingo, exactly. So if I'm flying not a hang glider, but if I'm flying an airplane and I have a transponder, I can fly below 2,500 feet and never talk to these guys. Okay. Now, if Class D and C are two smaller airports, what's the class above that?
Class
B.
B.
B. Okay, so give me the example of a Class B airport.
San Francisco International.
San Francisco, good. And this San Francisco is surrounded by what color lines?
Blue.
Blue, solid blue line. Okay. Now, even for airplane pilots, you cannot go in here without permission. Okay. You need a clearance to fly in this. Okay. So now we covered D, C, B airspace. Anybody know what A is?
Restricted, like military.
A, above. So above means from what we call flight level 180, 18,000 feet, all the way up to 60,000 feet is what's called Class A airspace.
Mm,
Also not allowed to fly there. You need what's called an instrument flight plan to fly in that airspace. Okay, now we already talked about the other two airspaces, E and G, okay? So easy way to remember E is everywhere. So E is everywhere that the other airspaces are not. Okay. Now, G, easy way to remember G is ground. It's close to the ground. In most parts of the United States, from 0 to 1,200 feet AGL, above ground level, is Class G airspace.
okay.
Okay, now, there are some places where it's ground to 700 feet AGL. And how you know that is you see this vignette, this circle around this airport. That means that in this area, Class G goes down to 700 feet. Okay. Now, the difference between Class G and E airspace, I can talk about, but primarily that's on the Hang-3 test. So I'm not going to get into it. Okay. If you want to, I recommend at some point, like after you've got that Hang-2 test knocked out and somebody's putting together a Hang-3 test review, then I recommend you sit in on that because it's something you should know.
Mm.
Okay. Worldview FR. Mark, where did you say you fly out of?
Blue Sky, Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. So
What, Mark? I'm from Blue Sky too.
Yeah, I met your friend Mia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
last week. I'm
Okay.
hopefully going out on Friday.
Okay. So let's see,
Oh.
Virginia. That's Fayetteville. That's North Carolina. So where's Blue Sky?
Richmond and then northeast.
Okay. So let's Richmond, Virginia.
It's Manquin. Is it Mankin? How do you say
Mannequin.
it? Mannequin.
Okay. So since we're here, we're in Richmond. What class airport is Richmond Airport?
Class C.
Very good. Okay. You said it's northeast?
Yes.
How far
let's see
northeast?
here. Let me see here. This won't take long.
Okay.
See where it says Tappahannock at the, yep.
Right here?
And then that road says 360. See 360?
Yeah.
It's the road. If you follow Tappahannock south on 360 and you get just to the T224 line that intersects with that R with the circle on it, that's where the park is.
Let me see here.
Left, down, and stop right there.
Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. All right, cool. So there's a VFR reporting point. It's Toddsbury is marked as a private airport. So yeah, you have a Class C near you. Okay.
Mhm.
Now in your area, this is really easy. Okay. So in this area where you guys are at, what is the airspace?
Class E. Maybe?
Except,
Mm.
let's say you're standing on the ground there. What airspace are you in? Like right here, right here.
Class
G.
G, good. To
Gotcha.
high, to high.
1,200 feet.
1,200 feet, good. What's above 1,200 feet?
Class E.
Class
E.
E, good. In this case, from here all the way up to flight level 600 is Class E airspace. Actually, I'm sorry, Class A, which is 17,999. Okay. So the bottom of Class E airspace is 17,999.
Okay.
Okay, cool. How about, let's say I just go a few miles down the road and I'm standing on the ground at Dunsville. I'm in what airspace?
Class
G.
C.
Yes.
Oh.
Class G. Okay, good.
Oh, you're on the
No.
ground. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the ground. Now, you see this vignette that goes around the airport, right? Now,
Mhm.
how high above my head does Class G airspace extend with this vignette around? Remember, I told you there's two heights for Class G airspace, right?
700, right? You said.
700.
Bingo, 700 feet. Congratulations. Okay, good. One little tip. Let's say, for instance, let's do the Washington area. Okay. If you ever get one of these paper charts, and pilots always have them because they expire every 6 months, right? And you're required to carry one. All the information that you need about anything on this chart is in the key here. Like you can find out about what airports are there, how to reach the weather, what frequencies, right? And then if there's any restricted airspaces, it's all in the margins. So
Okay.
it tells you like all these, it even gives you the phone numbers for all the control towers. But let's say, for instance, do they have any restricted airspaces? They do. Okay, so if you ever have any restricted airspaces, you look up the code on the map, come here to where the restricted airspace is located, and you can
Mhm.
tell how high it includes, or where it starts and what it includes,
Mhm.
how often and who controls it, and how to get a hold of them.
Mm.
Make sense? So this is
Mhm.
actually a cool little map to have, and you actually learn a lot about where you live by one of these maps.
So what is the name of this map, the site? What is it?
They're called sectional charts, but the map itself is called Sky Vector. So I'm
Okay.
sorry, the site is called Sky Vector. It's perfectly free. You can look at it anytime you want.
Okay. So open source.
And I'll be happy to link that to you later. All right.
Okay.
We're at 1800. I'm okay with continuing. Are you guys okay with continuing?
We're good.
Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm going to stop the recording. Let's see here. Nope. And let's see. Stop the recording. Okay, cool.